Good morning. Find myself with a few minutes before I got to be in with my client, and it is a beautiful morning. And I just picked up this book, which I have sitting next to me in my truck, and thought I'd read something to you. It's from Greg Braden's book, The Secrets of the Lost Mode of Prayer. And I opened up to this page, Our Greatest Fears. Whew. Really hit home for me today, and some of what I'm working on in my life on a day-to-day basis. The purpose of the dark night of the soul is for us to experience and heal our greatest fears. The really interesting thing about the dark night is that because everyone's fears are different, what looks like a frightening experience for one person may be no big deal to someone else. For example, Gerald admitted that his worst fear was being left alone. I'd spoken with a woman earlier this same evening, however, who told me that being alone was her greatest joy. It's not uncommon for someone who fears being alone to become a master at relationships in which they'll experience their fear. Gerald, for example, dismissed romances, friendships, and jobs in his past that could never have lasted in a million years. Gerald, for example, described romances, friendships, and jobs in his past that could not have lasted in a million years. When each one ended, he believed that the relationship had failed. In reality, his relationships were so successful that each one allowed him to see his greatest fear of being alone come to pass. Because he had never healed or even recognized the patterns in his life before. However, he found himself in situations where his fear became less and less subtle. Unfortunately, life led him to the point to where his fear was so evident that he had to address it before he could continue. While we may go through many dark nights of the soul throughout our lifetime, the first one is usually the toughest. It's probably the most powerful agent of change. Once we understand why we hurt so much, the experience begins to take on new meaning. As we recognize the signposts of a dark night, we can say, aha, I know that pattern. Yep, it's definitely a dark night of the soul, all right. Now, what is it that I'm being asked to master? I know people who are so empowered once they heal their dark night experiences that they almost dare the universe to bring on the next one. They do so simply because they know that if they've survived the first one, they can survive anything. It's only when we have such experiences without understanding what they are and why we're having them that we can find ourselves locked into years or even lifetimes of a pattern that can literally steal the very things from us that we hold most dear, such as life itself. Is it possible that unresolved hurt could shorten or even end a life? The answer may surprise you. I'm going through some of these moments right now in my life. Letting go of some of the things and revisiting and being grateful for and releasing the people, the places, and the things that have brought me sadness. Often sadness that I've turned into some anger. I remember one of my first dark nights, and I didn't even know it was a dark night back then. It was a while after I got sober when I realized that I had spent my entire lifetime taking every feeling I had and turning it into a different feeling just so I could control it and aim it, almost like a gun. I had turned sadness into anger, anger into sadness, so that I could manipulate and control these things. When I realized that, I went through a period of time where I went through back through so many of the things that took place in my life and looked at what they had been, what had happened, and what I'd turned it into. And I had to re-experience it as what I'd turned it into and what it was. Now I'm finding myself doing that yet again in my life. As I've grown spiritually over time, I realize, one, the job's never done. It's interesting talking to some of my spiritual teachers and finding out that they too are going through dark nights of the soul, even now. It doesn't stop, because there's always something that we can grow from. So the introduction and the rising up of my fears in my life and how they're manifesting in my life, they are manifesting exactly how I am expecting them to manifest. So, I'm working today, and you can join me in this, at looking at these patterns, re-looking at what's really going on in my life, and really taking to heart of what Reverend Michael and what other teachers talk about is just letting go. Letting it go. Forgiveness. Gratitude. To me, they're the same thing. Moving from the pain into the possibilities. I am so blessed to be able to recognize the moments in my life and to look at them and shift my perspective, thus shifting my reality, my now. So even as I move through this time in my life, it's interesting. As soon as I recognized this was what was happening in my life, even as I was not comfortable, and it's not a comfortable thing, I immediately felt gratitude for this moment, for this dark night. Because I was able to see that's what I was in, and I knew that I am about to explode into a whole new awareness of self, myself, my place, my life. Join me in this celebration. Comment if you like it, you like the video or whatever you're seeing. I really enjoy doing these. I love each and every one of us, each and every one of you. I am so blessed. Peace.